Thanks again for coming. A few things I just want to touch on. You've talked a lot about, your upbringings and stuff, but I want to go back to high school and college. Your high school coach was Vance Arnold, who is one of the best ever, I think, in Arkansas state history. I mean, 6 state titles, 15 conference titles. Those numbers speak for itself. Then at college, you had Dave Van Horn, 3 SEC titles, 8 division titles, 9 College World Series. I mean, again, numbers speak for itself. What do you think that having those two as head coaches, early in your career did maybe for setting your career trajectory?
Yeah, I was honestly, I'll be perfectly transparent. I was a kid that Van Horn and Matt Deggs, who was our hitting coach, they always tell me, man, you could be so much better. Just work hard, keep working, work harder. You could be better. And I think it's that never settle mentality. I think it's the attention to detail. I think it's that lead by example. I think it's all that stuff. I look back at my career and what I'm trying to do now as a coach. I think about those guys a lot. I think about a lot of the big league managers that I had that really did it the right way, that put me in a position to succeed, and how they went about their business, and really trying to replicate that as I move on to the next stage of my career.
Yeah, you got to Arkansas, and you were part of that '04 Arkansas baseball team that people, they say that team changed everything for the program. What's it been like? Is it satisfying, this many years down the road, seeing the impact that group had?
Yeah, I guess I'll be perfectly transparent again. It's funny to see the change of the way that the teams are, because we were a bunch of grinders, and we put in the work because we had those role models and those leaders that told us what it took to really take it to the next level. And developing not only some of those relationships with those guys, but knowing the impact that if we all kind of buy in and pull together, that the possibilities are endless, and we believed it. Like I said, it's between the ears, and when you believe it, the sky's the limit.
The team had a 20-year celebration this past season on a weekend. What was that weekend like?
Oh, it was awesome. It was absolutely awesome. Bumping into some of the guys that you hadn't bumped into in a while, maybe some of the guys that you really connected with, but maybe didn't play a huge role on the team. A lot of those memories kind of fade away. So, bumping into those guys, sharing some of those stories, reminiscing a little bit. A lot of the guys are the same guys, hadn't changed a bit. We all have college friends or old friends that you run into, and it was just like that good old friend that you hadn't seen in forever, but you pick up right where you left off. It was a lot of fun.
What are some of your, looking back on it, your favorite memories from that season, or just your time as a Razorback in general?
I guess a couple of, 2 plays in particular. It was my freshman year at LSU. We actually swept LSU for the first time since like the 80s, and it was a Sunday afternoon game, and it was the 9th inning, and there was a runner on second. I was playing right field, base hit to right field, and I hose him at the plate. We go in onto the next inning. I don't think we score, and we come back out, or we might have scored. They end up scoring a couple. It's the same guy on second base in the 10th inning, another base hit to right, and I hose him again at home. And we end up sweeping them, and that was just a really big. Scott Hody's dad, he was our shortstop at the time, he's Arkansas great in my opinion. His dad always brings that story up every time I see him, so it's fun to reminisce about that. And one more story, we were playing Tennessee my junior year, and it's the bottom of the 9th, and we're down 1. I hit one about 3 feet from going over the green monster in center, and I'm pretty jacked up that I just tied it up, and I'm high-fiving in the dugout, and literally the next pitch, Craig Gentry walks him off with a home run, and everyone just mid-high-five just stops high-five and runs out, and I'm just kind of like, oh, okay, and just kind of jog out. I got upstaged a little bit, but, that is a team effort all the way around, and he's a good friend of mine, so.
We've talked a lot about it, I feel like, already, but you were, you didn't ever pitch in college. You were drafted as a catcher, and you had to kind of remake yourself, I'm guessing, as a professional baseball player. How do you think that you were able to do that?
I pitched in high school. I had that background in pitching. I like to call myself an athlete, and it's funny when the pitchers have a bad stigma of being non-athletes, but when you get up to the big leagues, you look around in the bullpen, and this guy was a state championship quarterback, and this guy was a was a all-state pole vaulter or whatever it may be, and it's just a group of athletes. So, like I said, I loved the game so much, whether it was pitching or hitting or fielding, it didn't matter. It was being out there and being with the boys and getting better and playing the game that I loved.
You know, you talked about how you hit a home run the night before, or the same night you got told you're going to be a pitcher. What do you remember about the immediate future after had that conversation? Like, what was the next day, weeks? What did those look like?
Well, it's funny. I think a couple days before they did that, and before I had that home run game, we were taking infield, outfield. And for those who don't know, infield, outfield is just a little pregame routine you do you hit the ball to the outfield, and they work on their throws to the bases, and then you go to the infield and work on ground balls and the catcher's throw and all that stuff. But the first baseman normally catches the ball for the guy that's hitting as he's hitting in the outfield. And after the outfielders get done hitting, I step up on the mound, and I've got my first base glove on, and I tell the catcher, I say, hey, get down, I'm about to rip one. And I threw about as hard as I could, and I look up, and the three coaches are kind of just staring at me there with wide eyes. And then a couple days later, here I was. But, I loved it. I loved pitching. We always joke around and pitch, and you watch in the big leagues when those position players, when it's a blowout game and they get to pitch, it's fun to be up there, and it's fun to feel that pressure. I was always a guy that loved the pressure. I kind of fed off that intensity, and it's fun to be out there when the game's on the line and have the mental fortitude to be able to battle through being uncomfortable and come through for your team.
You talked about how lengthy your career was and people asking you, when are you going to be done? It's difficult to have that long of a career. What do you think that you did to kind of set yourself up to have that long of a career?
Well, I think not throwing in college really saved my arm. I know you talk about guys like I already mentioned him, Charlie Boyce, who he threw, I think, over close to 140 innings that year. And, just the stress that it puts on your arm as a pitcher, and those are bullets that I saved, and just a strong work ethic. I got done playing. It really took me getting to the big leagues. Like I told you before, they were always telling me, you could be better, work harder. I got to the big leagues, and I watched Alfonso Soriano at 40 years old, he was a multiple-time All-Star, Gold Glover, Silver Slugger. He was a very decorated ball player, and at 40 years old, watching him in AAA, and the fans are booing him, and no one likes him, but he's the first one there showing up, working on his knees. He's working in the training room for 2 hours just so he can walk around and warm up. So to see that kind of dedication, be like, man, this guy's been here for 20 years, and that's what it takes. Maybe I'm going to have to step it up a little bit and get after it. So, once I got there, I realized what it took to stay there, which is probably the harder than getting there, staying there. And I guess I just dedicated to that.
I was reading about it that whenever you were with the Angels, you lived in an RV.
Believe it.
Instead of a house or apartment. Will you talk about, that decision? And
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, that in 2015, I got hurt with the Cubs. That was the first year Joe Madden came over, and they ended up winning it in 2016. Well, they had let me go halfway through 2015 after I got hurt. I went to the Mariners, and then I went to the Yankees. And after pitching pretty well with the Yankees, the Angels picked me up, and I was bouncing around on waivers. So when you get picked up by a team and they want to keep you, but they want to send you down to AAA, you have to go through waivers for a few days. So I was bouncing around on waivers. I got picked up by the Angels, dropped off by the Angels, by the Brewers, dropped back off by the Brewers, and picked back up by the Angels. So I didn't really know what my role was going into it. I was a fringe big leaguer at this point. I was trying to go in. I didn't know if I was going to be in Salt Lake City, where their AAA was, or Anaheim. So I was going to get something I could kind of travel back and forth with, and I ended up having a spring training of a lifetime. I struck out 17 in a row and ended up making the team. I was throwing harder than I'd ever thrown, and I stuck, and I was in the RV all year. But it was awesome. It was like camping out every night. I mean, come on, you can't beat that. I was riding my bike to the stadium. It was like a mile away. It was great. Living in Anaheim for $1,000, right, for the spot.
I read one sentence about that. I was like, we got to hear a little bit more than just so he lived in an RV. But, yeah. want to talk about you were with the Twins in 2019, which Wes Johnson was the pitching coach. Mm-hmm. He spoke here before. I think everybody's familiar with him. Colby Suggs, he also spoke in here. He was there in some capacity. What was it like, or what do you remember about being with those two?
Oh, I mean, I knew the legend of Wes Johnson actually back in Anaheim. My bullpen coach, he was a West Coast guy, and he was a longtime big leaguer. He said, "We're going to Arkansas this weekend," or I think it was for the All-Star break actually that year. And I think they got some sort of pitching lab or something going on over there. And that was when all the analytics stuff was really starting to catch fire. And they showed up and they came back with all this stuff. So I knew about Wes. And then we actually go to the same church together. He goes to Cross Church in the off seasons and got to know him up there. And then we just had that Arkansas connection. You know, we had, obviously Colby was there helping him do anything. That was his first. It was both their first years in the big leagues. And it was just awesome to try to help him transition into that role just as much as he helped me. You know, obviously coming from a college rank and even coming from a high school rank within the last 10 years. You know, he was at a 2A high school, and just to see what he's done is just a big congratulations to him for putting in the work and doing it the right way.
I know you've talked about since you've been coaching. How's that been?
It's been unbelievably rewarding. You know, I still have that passion. I show up. It's easy for me to game plan for a practice or to prepare for a game. It's funny. I went to Arkansas. Obviously, I didn't know what I wanted to do, so I did the athlete major. We did kinesiology with K through 12, teaching and coaching being the subcategory. You know, you're going to school to be a PE teacher, and that's great. And I didn't really think much of it until I'm starting to lesson plan and game plan. It's like, man, I've done this before. This is pretty easy. Yeah, I've done this before. And, you know, college, you know, looking back at kinesiology and the study of the way the body moves and how that helped me throughout my career, it all just lined up perfectly.
What else have you been up to, you know, since you've been back?
Yeah, I've been coaching. I've been starting this little travel league, really just to be the right point in a sad world of coaches. You know, I'm sorry I'm being again transparent here, but these coaches, I feel like they want to win for themselves, and I really want these kids to win. I want to dive back into these kids. I want them to develop that passion that I had, so that, you know, really once they get to high school, they want to get better and they want to make the team and being that role model that I saw throughout my whole career and just trying to emulate that a little bit.
That's all I got for you. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you, man. Appreciate it. Thank you, guys.